So the Packers just made their 2 third-round draft picks. First off, with pick number 88, the Packers' first third-round pick of the third round, they decide to draft running back MarShawn Lloyd from USC. So the Packers add another running back. Aaron Jones, of course, leaving, going to the Minnesota Vikings. The Packers bring in Josh Jacobs. They also bring back A.J. Dillon. And so now they have another running back in the room along with Emmanuel Wilson, who's also on the roster. But MarShawn Lloyd, 5'9", 210 pounds. He's 23 years old. Here's what PFF says about him. Lloyd's calling card is his athletic ability. His burst, agility, and long speed are all well above average for the NFL level. He's the kind of back who he can take it to the house if he gets to the sideline. His vision for finding those running lanes is still inconsistent, as he often fails to see cutback lanes in zone blocking schemes. However, when running gap schemes, he does seem more patient. As a third down back, he wasn't used much as a receiver, but he does have good hands and an electric after-the-catch ability. He also takes pride in his blocking game to help other teammates. The bottom line, Lloyd is a starting NFL caliber athlete for the running back position. If he can improve his vision to see space before it opens up, he can be an impact starter. So I don't think the Packers necessarily needed to make this kind of move and draft a running back here because they decided to, of course, bring in Josh Jacobs. But when you look at that contract, they do have an ability. If Josh Jacobs, let's say, struggles or they want to move on after a year or two, they have the ability because they didn't give him a ton of guaranteed money outside of the first year or two. And so let's say 2 years from now, the Packers decide to part ways with Josh Jacobs. They will now have another back on the roster who could potentially fill that role, maybe take over in a couple seasons. But when you look at 2024 specifically with Josh Jacobs, taking the lead there, being the starting running back, taking a majority of the carries, I think now with the Packers using a third-round pick on Lloyd, there's no doubt he's going to be competing for that second running back spot with A.J. Dillon and Emmanuel Wilson. There's a chance, he beats out those guys and becomes the Packers' number 2 back. The Packers didn't give A.J. Dillon that much money to bring him back to Green Bay. And when you look at the fact here, PFF saying that Lloyd, he has good hands and he also likes to block. And so maybe Josh Jacobs, is the main back here, and then Lloyd becomes that number 2 if he's able to beat out A.J. Dillon and Emmanuel Wilson. So I'm satisfied here. I think to add any kind of player who's explosive, who has that ability to take it to the house at any time, you always love to add those kind of players. And so it's going to be exciting to have a guy like that here in this Packers offense. And, I imagine kinds of, screens, plays on third down where maybe the Packers can, toss it off to the running back. Lloyd could be that kind of guy that the Packers can rely on in those kinds of situations. So I wasn't sure when the Packers would take it back here in this draft. I thought maybe at some point, but round 3 shows that, this is somewhat of an investment. Round 3, it's not the first 2 rounds, but still the Packers, trying to secure the running back. And we'll see if maybe in a few seasons, if Josh Jacobs eventually leaves, maybe Lloyd is the guy. And then pick number 91, the Packers' final third-round pick, we have another inside linebacker, Tyron Hopper. Now, Tyron Hopper, if you look at NFL Draft Buzz, where his average rank among these different draft sites, overall 154. So the Packers take him a lot earlier than most sites saw him going. They must see something there. I've learned to trust Brian Gutekunst and his Packers front office and their decisions when it comes to draft day. They clearly like him for a reason. But if we read here his breakdown from PFF, this is what they say. He's 6'2", 221. They say this: despite his less impressive measurables, Hopper is a good athlete with potential as a coverage defender and pass rusher. His play speed is a pro and a con for him. If he can be more appropriate about when to turn on the jets and when to be patient, he could be a contributing linebacker and special teams standout. And looking at some of his stats, you can tell in 2023 and 2022, missed a ton of tackles, missed 17 in 2023, 16 in 2022. His missed tackle rate in 23 was 22.7%, which is not very good. So that seems to be an area of his game where he needs to improve. And just looking at his PFF grades in college, he had a 77.5 grade back in 2022, and then last season a 51.5 grade. So it seems that he had some kind of decline in 2023. Not exactly sure why that is. But it is interesting here. The Packers decide to get another inside linebacker. And so before this draft, linebacker was one of the biggest needs. And now the Packers have gotten Edgerrin Cooper and now Tyron Hopper to be there on this defense. We'll see if Hopper, with having the Jeff Hafley defense, having a 4-3-3 middle linebacker starting there when you're not in nickel, maybe it's Quay Walker, Edgerrin Cooper, Hopper. Maybe it's Isaiah McDuffie. But now the Packers do have a ton of depth there at inside linebacker, which is exactly what they needed to do in this draft. And so I think positionally it makes lots of sense. I'm honestly not too familiar with Hopper, but the Packers seem to like something about him to take them here in the third round. So those are the two Packers third round picks. Stay tuned for more draft updates in the next couple of days. But thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.